In my opinion, one of the best things about the Transformers fiction is that the robots are all different sizes and shapes and can coexist in the same universe without it feeling weird. This is probably due to the mix and match roots of the series that combine several Japanese toy lines into the American property known as Transformers. But still cool. I wish I could read. What's good, internet? It's your boy Jake here, dumb as ever. And in today's video, we're gonna talk about the biggest and smallest Transformers I could find on the internet. Real quick, if you're into what I'm doing over here, please drop a like and subscribe. It'll help me against Algae Rhythm, the villain of Space Jam: A New Legacy. Let's start this video off with an obvious big guy, Unicron. First appearing in the Transformers movie from 1986, Unicron is a literal planet-sized transformer. He is actually a freaking planet. So as a result, his toys tend to be pretty big. Though he hasn't gotten that many, a lot of prototypes, but not a lot of official figures. Obviously, we have the $600 Goliath HasLab Unicron, which a lot of people like, a lot of people don't like, and a lot of people are mad that the prices are so high on the secondary market now. You gotta take out a mortgage to get one of those HasLab Unicrons. Personally, I just think it's too big. Like, I get it. I get why it's so big. It's a Unicron, it's a planet. But me personally, I prefer the Armada Unicron from back in the day because he had a ton of cool features. The design from Armada is cool. I kinda like it a little bit more than G1 Unicron. Is that sacrilegious to say? Please let me live. And Armada Unicron had a little guy named Dead End. He turned into a little tiny planet himself, which is funny because if you think about the scale of it, if Dead End turns into one of Unicron's moons, then that would make him gigantic. not a mini-con at all, but we don't need to think about that, and we especially didn't think about that back in 2003. Speaking of mini-cons, one of my faves, small Transformers. In case you didn't know, in Transformers Armada, they introduced mini-cons, which were essentially Pokemon but Transformers. Just little guys that couldn't speak English, and the Transformers were trying to catch them all. Mini-cons are amazing, and one of the biggest flops of Legacy is them not including mini-cons with the Armada characters. Like, I'm sorry, but Armada Optimus Prime should never be without Sparkplug. The mini-cons from Armada were so fun to transform for me. I would carry some with me at all times. I had a ton of them, man. I love the ones that turned into cars. I love the Perceptor team that could combine into a whole robot. I have the Dark Starsaber team of mini-cons, which is awesome. The Starsaber honestly doesn't really work as an accessory. Kind of falls apart way too easy. But just the fact that a bunch of the mini-cons could combine into different weapons was awesome. I love that part. The Skyboom shield, the big old laser gun. I should rewatch Transformers Armada. It's probably as good as I remember, right? Right. Let's talk about some classics. Back in G1, they had some big boys. For a long time, they were the biggest boys. We had Fortress Maximus, this big guy that, to a lot of G1 fans, this guy was the end-all be-all. A gigantic transformer that could turn into a city. I guess you also had Metroplex, but Fort Max was even bigger, man. Even bigger. Me personally, I don't really care for city robots. Like, I don't get the appeal, but I do get the appeal of the rival to Fort Max, Trypticon, who turned from a city into a freaking dinosaur. Basically Godzilla. Usually Godzilla destroys a city. This Godzilla turned into a city. Very underrated Trypticon. He hasn't had that many toys, probably because they would have to be big as hell. We did get a Trypticon remake in like 2015. It's almost been 10 years. Can I get a reissue? Could I get a remake maybe? Like, I missed the boat on that Trypticon. I was 17. I didn't have that type of money back then. Speaking of G1, we should also talk about the Micromasters, which could be considered the OG mini-cons. Back in the day, Micro Machines was getting super popular, and those were just tiny cars with playsets. Now imagine if those tiny cars could transform. Mind blown. and minds were blown. Micromasters was pretty successful as far as I can tell, and we even got remakes of them with Transformers War for Cybertron. I don't know if they're OG Micromasters, but I do have these ones that turn into a NASA space shuttle. I just thought the space shuttle was cool. Micromasters also had playsets, which featured vehicles that could transform and transport them, or like airports and gas stations. Some of these playsets would be turned into their own characters in the War for Cybertron series, which is cool. Another big old transformer from my childhood is the Cybertron Primus, the rival to Unicron. This toy introduced the concept of Primus to me. I had never heard of Primus beforehand, and I had never even considered there might be a god of Transformers. I gotta say though, back in the day, I loved this Primus toy. I thought he was even cooler than Unicron. At this point, my Unicron was pretty disheveled. I mean, he was missing pieces. I did not have his wing pieces, the shell of his planet mode. Those were long gone, man. Compared to Primus, he was pretty beaten up. But Primus was so cool. He had the Cyber Planet key, obviously, and he had a couple automorph gimmicks. But in general, he just had like a presence. And they had taken what they learned from the Unicron toy and upgraded everything about the Primus toy. So I love that guy. For the toy line based on the Transformers movies, they did a brilliant thing where they made all the auxiliary vehicles used by the humans into their own Transformers characters. For example, the tow truck that carries Bumblebee around that Michaela uses, they turned that into a Transformer. Well, they did this for a lot of vehicles that appeared in the movie. It was pretty smart, to be honest, because they needed to fill out the toy line some way, and the first movie didn't have much of a cast. Well, they did continue this trend into the second movie, despite having a lot more characters in the second movie, and one of the toys they made was called Stratosphere. Now, if you're a newer fan, you might know Stratosphere as that robot that shows up in Rise of the Beasts and then doesn't really do much. Where was he during the final battle? He is huge. He could have just stepped on Battletrap. But before Rise of the Beasts, back in Revenge of the Fallen, they turned a plane that was featured at the beginning of the movie that drops Optimus off from the air. They turned that plane into a character called Stratosphere for the toy line. Now, I had this figure. I think Stratosphere is an awesome toy. Apparently, according to TF Wiki, he's the victim of gold plastic syndrome, which sucks. But he turned into a really cool plane and then transformed into this awesome lanky robot, which I always like the lanky ones. But the reason I bring him up is not because of his size. He's a Voyager class. He's big for a Voyager class, but he's not that big. Is because he comes with a tiny Optimus Prime, a teeny tiny Prime that could fit into the cargo bay of the toy, so you could simulate the opening scene of the movie. I thought this was so awesome as a kid. Like, I was so over the moon to find that figure, and then it comes with a tiny Optimus Prime that was super fun to transform. Very simple, didn't look that much like the movie Optimus Prime. He looked more like Machine Wars Hoist, to be honest. But just that single play feature stuck with me for a long time, so shoutouts to Revenge of the Fallen Stratosphere, and not the one from the movie that didn't do anything. What the heck, man? What the heck? Are they gonna make a studio series of that guy? It'd have to be really big. The last big Transformers I'm gonna talk about are the Robosen, Optimus Prime, and Megatron. Those guys are so big. I mean, they're cool, they move around a little bit, but why are they so big though? Do they have to be big because of the technology, or do they want them to be big? I don't know, but they're too big. No hate to anyone that has a Robosen, Optimus, or Megatron, but I just can't see the point in them, especially because they transform themselves. Like, half the fun of a Transformer to me is me getting to transform it. So the fact that it transforms itself is fun. It's a party trick, if anything, but like, I just feel like the playability isn't there. And the last smallest Transformer I want to talk about is actually a whole series from Japan called Smallest Transforming Transformers. Great name. And this was a series of blind bags from the early 2000s. And inside these blind bags were small recreations of the G1 Transformers. Optimus Prime, Megatron, Soundwave, Starscream, all of them got super small remakes. I'm talking 2-inch Transformers, which is A, adorable, and 2, why don't they still make these? Why can't I buy a tiny little Soundwave? Well, I guess I did buy a tiny little Soundwave, but why doesn't his cassette transform like the one from the 2000s? Remembering I had the Soundwave kind of reminded me of why I thought to make this video anyway. Listings for new Transformers products kind of indicate that the core class size is not gonna come back. Meaning banger figures like this Soundwave and Rat Trap, no more. They're just not gonna make any small size class figures like that. At least not on their own. There's some indication we'll get core class sizes in multi-packs, which, you know, is a way around the issue. But it does suck to see the core class go, because I think everyone has room in their hearts for small little robots. It also makes me sad because I feel like that means they're not gonna make mini-cons. What the heck, Hasbro? Why won't you make some frickin' mini-cons, man? But anyway, that's my video. Thank you for watching. If you want to see more of me, please consider checking out the Back Kibble podcast. It's a podcast I'm doing with Perspective End and T-Fanpage 101. We have an episode up right now that's sort of like an episode 0. And then episode 1 will come out July 4th. It's going to be a review of Transformers, the 07 movie. And then the second episode after that is going to be a smash or pass. We recorded that recently, and I gotta say, it is cursed. So if you're interested in that, interested in Transformers podcast or more Dumb Jake, go check that out. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. We just hit 20K subscribers, which I don't even know what to say. Like, thank you, thank you, thank you. I am blown away by the support I've gotten, and I can't wait to make more videos for y'all. Thank you. I'm gonna go get a little Caesars and relax. Peace.